I loosened these three controls from the chassis, kind of get them out of the way, give me a little more room to work. The old jack's out. There's a new one we'll be putting in. Welcome back to the basement shop. Continuing the restoration of the 1948 Admiral, model 19A12. Part 2. The set seems to be working okay, other than this contrast control. But this morning, I have this surround. This is a part that the picture tube sets up against. And just checking it out, I think we have enough vertical and horizontal deflection that it will adjust and fill the screen. Those high voltage caps, I mean, they seem to be working okay. There's 6,000 volts on them, and picture is in proportions. First two things we'll do this morning: that contrast control and this AC interlock. Yeah, it works, but you can see you can wiggle it just a little and the set goes out. So we'll change that, work on the contrast control. There's that AC input. Drill those rivets out and get a new one put in. Yeah, definitely think that's wore out. This just pulled off with the back of the metal housing, and we got a connector loose. There's the front of it. One out here. I loosened these three controls from the chassis, kind of get them out of the way, give me a little more room to work. The old jack's out. There's a new one we'll be putting in. Rivets. Now we just got to hook up the wires. That job's finished. Now we'll put the three controls back. All right, much better. Get this contrast control pulled out. We have yellow wire on one side, orange wire on the other side, and the center goes to the ground lug right there. Really scratchy and intermittent. The Admiral part number 75A14. Could order a new one. Yeah, I don't think that would go very well. Don't believe that's possible. All right, we got to carefully bend these tabs, not too much at a time or they'll break off. Sometimes they break off anyway, but we're going to try to be careful. And we'll start back around. It's coming apart. And that's a wire wound. I think you can see inside there. About all we can do is just make sure the wiper is seated good. Just clean it out really good and maybe bend that wiper just a little, put some more pressure on it. We'll see how it acts. This should be 1,000 ohms across it, and 966. Then as we adjust it from the center to one side, there's maximum. We'll put it back together and see if it acts any differently. I restored I think it was a mech. It had a bad contrast control, but only one side was bad, so I was able to still use it, but it worked the opposite. When you adjusted the contrast, you had to turn it all the way counterclockwise instead of clockwise. As long as you leave it turned all the way up, it seems to be working okay. Next, I'm going to do that vertical retrace modification. That should get rid of those retrace lines. They just come and go with changes of scenery. So let's do that next and see if we can help that. And that did make an improvement. Contrast is not as shaky as it was. And we don't have any retrace lines now. First, we unhook pin 3 of the CRT. And that's that orange wire, and it just tied to ground. So we took it loose from ground, put a 220K resistor from that point back to ground. So now we're 220K above ground, going to pin 3 of the CRT. Then we put a 220 picofarad cap from this point back to pin 5, which is where I have my test lead here now. So that connection right there, over to the resistor, and that gets the job done. And that looks much better. Let's turn our attention to the resistors. I had mentioned these series of resistors here in the focus circuit right here. 4 2.2 megs, then a couple of 1 megs. Going to replace those. And I have checked them with the meter, and this one here, this 2.2, it checks 15 meg. So definitely bad. These others, they are over 3 meg, so they would still work, but that one definitely checked way out. These are 1 watt resistors, the originals. These are 1 watts, the new ones. 1 meg, 1 watt. These are 5 watt, but I had those, so why not use a heavier one? And then the IF circuit. First, second, third IF tubes right here. The bias resistors have usually drifted up in value, and these have. I've checked all 3 of these. Both of these supposed to be 82 ohm. They check over 100. This 150 ohm, it checks right at 200. So we'll be replacing all 3 of those. And here's the 3 new ones. 282s, a 150. Let's go after these 2.2 megs first. Okay, 2 of them in. Now, to clean off a terminal, first I just clip the resistor Get it out of the way. And then I use these old nippers. Just heat the terminal. Then I take these old nippers and just start nipping away at the lead that's sticking through. It just leaves little short pieces. Push them through the terminal. You hold it right there and cut it. There we go. I found that if you try to unwrap it, it's a lot harder. But if you just cut the leads, usually come right out. And ready for the next one. Okay, let's see how it works. All right, focus right in the middle. So that's good. Okay, 3 new resistors in the IF circuit. And still working okay. Wanted to show you a couple of these 2-watt resistors, how bad they had changed value. This one is R3. So it should be a 4.7K or 4700. 7100. Quite a difference. So just an example of how these old resistors can change. Let's talk about these paper caps. I've been thinking about this, and while the set is working, I think I'm going to change the ones that have been put in. A couple of reasons. Number one, I don't know how old they are. I don't know, when this work was done on this set, so they could be 30, 40 years ago. I don't think so, just by looking at some of the caps, but still don't know when they were made and when they were put in. And number two, sometimes shops would use caps that were close enough in value to still work if they didn't have the correct value in stock. So I want to check that and make sure that it does have the correct ones in there. We just do them one at a time like I typically do caps. We'll change one, turn the set on, make sure it's still working okay, and then continue on. I think I'm going to put new high voltage caps in also. I don't know how old these are, and they're 5 kV, should be 6 kVs. So get all the caps changed. I won't bore you by showing you how I put each one in. Schematic, parts list, caps I should need. Easy to get to, I don't have to get up. So let's get started. Paper caps changed. I did find one mistake. C50, which is just a coupling cap that goes from the oscillator to the output tube. There's supposed to be a 0.05 or 0.047, that's what I use. It's a 0.01. Now, yeah, the set was still working, but that was the wrong value. All the rest of them, they jived with what was supposed to be in the set. Only caps left are those high voltage caps. So that'll be next. I've replaced 2 of the high voltage caps so far. C54, C55, 0.005, 6 kV. Now what I put in are 10 kV, these 2 blue ones. And did a little bit of research on these that were in the set. These are AVX. And these are good quality high voltage caps. The only issue is they're not quite heavy enough. 5 kV, we need at least 6. So I'm going to go ahead and replace them. I will hang on to these because I might be able to use them in some other brand that's not producing quite as much high voltage. Working good after replacing those two. Not only are they not quite heavy enough, they're also the wrong value. These are 123K. Next we're going to do these two here, 0.001. And I have some 7.5K. Now the ones that were in there, again the wrong value. These are 392K. There's all the new high voltage caps. And the old caps. We're producing a really good sharp picture now. I think those caps helped. Probably because they weren't the right value. I'll just show you one of these 0.047s. We have 5 of those. Leakage, none. Barely came on there at 500 volts and went back off quickly. And if we check the value, 0.04. There's our white as pie. Right on it, 0.04. All 5 of these check the same, so those are good caps. These are 0.01s, I think. Yeah, 0.01. These are 600 volts. There are 4, 5, 6 of those. Second scale, C2. There's 0.01, and it checks right on it. Now let's go to leakage. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, no leakage. As I suspected, all of these caps were good, but I'm still okay with changing them all. Now, before I call this completed, I'm going to put some Corona dope on all of these high voltage connections. Corona dope, put on with a Q-tip. We'll dab all of those connections where the high voltage is. And I do need to hook my speaker back up just to make sure that her sound's okay, because I haven't tried it since I changed all of those paper caps.
Do you think you could get to the filing cabinet in my workshop at home?
Oh yeah.
I gave Lieutenant Tragg my key. I guess he didn't run across the one I...
Working good. All right, one last look underneath the chassis. Quite a bit of work. Probably could have left those paper caps alone, but I'm glad I put new ones in. One last check. Geometry looks good. And playing fine.
Now, where in the world did you get an idea like that? Come on, let's get to work.
Well, let's see if we can get this chassis cleaned up some. Didn't wipe off the tubes when I tested them, so we'll pull them out. And while they're out, we'll do some cleaning on the chassis around the tube sockets. Then I'll pull this rusty plate off here that on top of the tuner. See if we can do anything with that. I have some tube shields. We'll just replace those. Transformers, we'll just repaint those. And just a general cleaning of the rest of the chassis. Well, not perfect, but a lot better. We got rid of most of the rust. And this is the back side of the antenna input. I don't expect all of that to come off either, but we'll get rid of all that we can. A couple of better looking tuner tube shields. Painted the top of the transformer, top of that metal encased tube, and I did leave the factory stamp and the factory part number still readable. Cleaned the CRT socket and the wires. Finished with the chassis. Picture tube in, have it clamped where it needs to be. Our picture is horizontal. So that's going to wrap up part 2. 1948 Admiral Model 19A12. One more video. We'll work on that cabinet, get it polished up, reassemble everything. We'll show you the completed set. Thanks for watching. See you in part 3. We hope you've enjoyed the video. And if you did, how about giving us a like and subscribe to our channel? Thanks.